Hello and welcome to Football League World TV. My name is Sam Rourke, the chief editor of Football League World.co.uk. This afternoon, we've got the Derby County Fan Takeover show, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jason and Cory from the Rams Review podcast. Jason, how are we this afternoon?
Thanks, Sam, for having us on. I'm all right, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Cory, how are we getting on?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a little bit earlier in the day for me, Sam, being over in the States. But yeah, fantastic to be with you and excited to be talking all things Derby County this morning with you.
Fantastic stuff. So we do urge, if Derby County fans are watching this live show on whatever platform, we do encourage you to get involved with your comments, send in your opinions and questions for the panel. We'll bring them up during the live show. But let's get straight into it. So let's rewind a little bit back to the summer before the season kicked off. Now, it's fair to say it's been a turbulent few years for Derby County, both on and off the pitch. Let's come to you, Jason, first. Obviously, we saw what happened last season on the last day. Just about stayed up in the Sky Bet Championship by the skin of your teeth. And we saw what happened over the summer with the failed takeovers, 2 collapsed takeover deals. You came into this season with a very threadbare squad. I mean, what were your expectations, Jason? Was it simply to avoid the drop?
I think it was to try their hardest to avoid the drop. I think you can make no bones about it. With everything that was going off over the summer, we almost didn't even have that many players come in. I think it was like a couple of days before the curtain raiser against Huddersfield at home. And one of the things that you learn as a Derby fan is to never get too optimistic with the club. And it was almost a disappointment, but it was we're kidding. What more did we expect? We fully expected unfortunately a turbulent summer, and that's pretty much what we got. So it was always just it was just going to be a case of where and how can Derby stay up in the Championship for another season. We were weaker than the season before in terms of players. On paper, this is, with still nowhere near any sign of anything happening off the field. Since the beginning of the season as well, there's been more sanctions brought against us by the looks of it from the EFL. So it's just one calamity after another that seems to be happening with the club at the moment, certainly off the field. And so, yeah, it's a case of we just have to go into every game. We have a saying in our podcast that, Derby have just got to take every opportunity that they're handed and see where it puts them. Because we were saying up until January, but by the looks of things, I mean, unless something radical changes, and quick things at Derby County are not normally what happens. So this could be, even worse come January, and the odds are stacked against Derby. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly the case. All Derby fans, if you are watching, please let us know what your expectations were heading into this season. Cory, we'll come to you. Do you kind of echo Jason's thoughts there? Was it all about safety this season, kind of coming in terms of your expectations?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would have snapped your hand off at the beginning part of the season for fourth bottom. I really would have. And I probably would have snapped your other hand off for a drama-free season as well. But both of those probably, obviously the drama is always going to surround Derby and whatnot, but definitely it was a tough close season. Like Jason said, Derby were going into the Huddersfield game with like 8 senior pros. And then obviously they were able to sign a few players after the EFL allowed them some flexibility and leeway there. But yeah, it's very, very turbulent off seasons. And with Derby, you either get feast or famine, right? You're either bringing in Wayne Rooney as a marquee signing. You're either smashing your transfer record. You're bringing in Loanese like Harry Wilson, Mason Mount, Fikayo Tomori, or you're signing 38, 39-year-old Phil Jagielka, Richard Stearman, and Sam Bolduc, which, I don't think Sam Bolduc actually signed that time. I think it was Ryan Alsop. And so, not to take anything against those, you're going to get one or the other from Derby. It's always going to be something to talk about, which is good for us on a podcast, right? Always something to talk about. But I think the expectations for this season were and still are, let's finish fourth bottom to lower middle half of the table, and let's steer away from the relegation trouble and get out of that mire as quick as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on this season next. So I think it's fair to say most media outlets were tipping you to, in their prediction tables, to finish in the bottom three. Hands up, we were part of that part of it as well. We predicted you to finish at rock bottom, but the early signs are quite promising. 7 points so far from 7 games, 14th in the table. It's been a steady start. Jason, have you been pleasantly surprised with the early kind of start to the season for Derby?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've only got to look at the start that we had last season. I think we didn't win for our first 11 games. Okay, we've only got 1 win so far. And let's face it, anybody who watches Derby will know it should have been more so far this season. We've taken the lead in every game but 2. But ultimately not being able to hold on to results. But yeah, it has been surprising. We've had I think it's fair to say we've had a mixture of teams to come up against. We're starting a run of fixtures now where, you know, there are going to be obviously some tough challenges. And actually, I think whilst results haven't quite probably gone as the way that Derby's performances have deserved, the performance side of things has been really pleasing. I think other than Birmingham last Friday night, we take that one out because that wasn't good. And we did kind of worry that, bubbles burst already. But then I know we're going to touch on it a little bit later on, but then, you know, we turn out last night and yeah, okay, it was an absolute barrage for 90 minutes and it was. Cory will agree, and I'm sure most Derby fans would agree. I can't remember the last time a team, we came up against a team like that who barrages like that and we didn't concede. That is unheard of, and we're going back a couple of years at least for that, not just a few games. So it's promising. It is promising. I mean, only 1 win so far. That's, I suppose, the negative. We've got to start turning up for 90 minutes, which we've not really done enough so far. There are reasons behind that, as we've just touched on, but I don't know what else. I can't think of another scenario that would make me happier under the current situation. I think, yeah, you've got to take the hats off to them. They've tried and they've done well. I can't really knock them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on last night's game then. A pretty impressive result, you could say, for Derby, given, you look at the stats, it was pretty much one-way traffic throughout the whole game. But hats off to that Derby County back line and Kelly Roos in particular. Really, really strong performance from him. Cory, I mean, how much heart do you take from that result last night against one of, if not the best team in the league?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, West Brom and Fulham are going to finish top 2 in this division. I don't think, in my mind, there's any debate about that. They look the strongest team, obviously Premier League team coming down. And I don't think Jason and myself were too optimistic going into the game. I think we both thought that Albion were going to get some points, take all 3 points. And I was very pleasantly surprised that Derby came out with a point. And for me, it's another solid point on the board. Derby's got 7 now. So that's fantastic. And this is the kind of performances that we are starting to see from Derby this season. These gritty performances where it might not be sexy, it might not be liquid football, right? It's not the Derby County of Steve McLaren era 2014, right, where they were playing the Derby way, whatever. There's a new Derby way, and it's gritty. It's fighting for the other lad next to you in the changing room, and it's going out there and putting in performances like that. And I think they did put in a very good performance. People like to look at stats and whatever. And I know sometimes Jason and I are a sucker for a good statistic, but at the end of the day, the most important statistic is that scoreline. And when it finishes 0-0, 1 clean sheet, solid performance. Obviously, it's disappointing that you're not able to get a goal. But then when you look at the stats, Derby didn't really have any shots, so it's difficult to do that. It was very much the Alamo last night, and goalkeeper Kel Roos was fantastic. Kel has been at Derby for a long time. He's had to wait a very long time for his opportunity. I think Jason, it's pretty safe to say, isn't it, that Kel splits the fan base as a bit of a diverse figure, because obviously Derby's 3rd goalkeeper is David Marshall, who can't get on the bench, right, from Scotland. And let's not talk about the Euros where he got chipped from 70 yards. That was a bit of, let's not worry about that. But yeah, I always have this adage that you can't trust a goalkeeper with a man bun. I don't know why. It's just one of these weird things. But Kell performed fantastic last night. And now what we need to see from Kelle Roos is we need to see Kelle continue the form of last night into 3 or 4 games time, because Jason, I think you'll agree that he is a very good shot stopper. He's a pretty decent goalkeeper, but he's also wildly inconsistent. And, we saw that against Nottingham Forest. He made a world-class save against Lewis Graben, keeps Derby in the lead. And then 5 minutes later gets beaten in his near post by Brendan Johnson. So there always are these conversations about Kelle, but to take nothing away from his performance last night, he was absolutely outstanding. What a brick wall.
Yeah, certainly one of the standout players. And like you say, he is a player that does seem to divide the fan base. I think it does come down to that consistency, doesn't it, with Kelle Roos in particular. Let's just touch on another player that made his first league start for Derby County last night, Dylan Williams at left wing back. He impressed down that left flank, given it was his first game in what was a tough game for his first ever league encounter. Jason, just how impressed were you with Williams last night?
Yeah, I mean, a team that were playing Premier League football not 3 months ago, and he didn't disgrace himself. Dylan's one who has come into the fray pre-season. We've started to see a bit more of him, and I think he's played in both cup games. I don't think I've seen him put a foot wrong in about 7 games. He really does look a real decent player. Obviously, he's only 8. I think he turned 18 yesterday. Actually, I think it was his actual birthday yesterday. Or the day before. So what a birthday present! But yeah, I mean, he's got that young grit, determination. He's got something that you need. Obviously, you would hope he's only going to get better. He's going to bulk out. He's going to do this, that, and the other in the next couple of years. It's great to know that he's there, because Derby's left side has been questionable over the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, is he going to play 40 championship games in a row? Probably not. Would he have even been anywhere near an opportunity if everything that's going off at Derby was going off? Probably, again, nowhere near. But at the end of the day, whilst there is negativity on that side of things, it's a great opportunity for some of these youngsters to come in and show what they're made of. And for me, Dylan's done that. Okay, now it's his task to, keep going, keep working hard, and see if he can't nail down a first team spot. I don't think that's probably going to happen anytime soon, if I'm being completely honest. And that's no knock from him. That's just we've got more experienced players at that position. But certainly, I know something that me and Cory commented on our podcast earlier on this week about, 3 games in a week. Where's squad rotation coming from? Dylan Williams is a great squad rotation player. He proved it last night. He's not going to come up against many better in the Championship than what he came up against last night. And he, as I say, I don't think he disgraced himself at all. I think there was one slight mistake that he made, but the kid's 18. That's not a problem. We've had players, I wouldn't say at the minute, but we've had players at Derby who are well advanced in years and experience that haven't shown the quality that Dylan Williams shown last night. So I hope we see more of him. I do. I hope we do see more of him. If we will or not, I'm not too sure at the moment, but it's great to know that there's somebody down there that, if needed, if called upon, it's probably now not as much of a gamble. Okay, again, it's only one start, but he has been involved in pre-season. He has been involved in cup games. He's around the lads. I don't think it's as much of a gamble anymore, and I hope he does well. So far, can't knock him.
Yeah, certainly a very encouraging night for him last night, which is good to see. Right, let's touch on some of the summer arrivals at Derby. Obviously, it was a tough summer for Derby County in the transfer window. An array of restrictions imposed on them by the EFL. They didn't have much to pick from. But they managed to pick up a few free agents near the latter end of the window. We saw the likes of Sam Bolduc arrive, Phil Jagielka, Ravel Morrison, Ryan Alsop. Jason, we'll come to you here just on this. We're going to go through a couple of the players in particular. Let's firstly touch on Sam Bolduc. What do you make of his arrival? He's featured a couple of times. He scored in your win at Hull City. What have you made of his early impact at Derby?
I think it's... We needed to bring somebody in because of the injury to Kasem Richards. We know everything that's happening. We knew the budget. We knew the type of pool that we were picking players from. Sam Bolduc is a very experienced Championship player, a bit of a journeyman, but that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. And we needed a striker. We couldn't rely on 18, 19-year-old Jack Stretton, who's, again, had a handful of minutes at first team level. Whilst he's decent, he's not ready to lead the line for a Championship club. It's changed the way that Derby's played. Obviously, normally the hold up is what we play with CKR, but obviously Bolduc's not that type of player. He gets more in and around the channels. It makes Derby quicker going forward. Derby's basically 3 up top and Ravel really kind of floating around in the middle. It allows for Derby to break faster. It allows for the triangles to come off, the passing, the movement. We can get up the pitch when we can actually hold on to the ball up front. We can do a little bit more with it than what I've seen with CKR, but it is a different type of role. I mean, in the games that he's played, he took his goal well, a poacher's goal against Hull, it's 3 or 4 yards out, exactly where you want your number 9 to be to put the ball into the back of the net. Last night, I don't remember him touching the ball, but I think that was just the way that the game went. He's going to be involved between now and I don't know if there's been a timescale put on Kasem Richards' injury, but I think you're looking at least the next 7 or 8 games, I would have thought, until he's after the international break that he's anywhere near. So he is going to get a run of games. We've got to create more for him. Same with any striker. It's chances have got to be created for him. And that ball last night was just not sticking for him. But there will be times, I think, maybe at home when Derby try and push their own game onto the opposition, you might see Sam Bolduc do better at home than he's one of them players than he would away. But he knows where the net is, and when you're not spoilt for choice like Derby aren't at the minute, I'd rather have him in the building and I'd rather have him up front than nobody. We go back to the Forest game a couple of weeks ago where we played with a false 9, really, or you could class Tom Lawrence was up front, but I don't think he really was. That worked for a 40-minute period in one game. That's probably not the way to go. If you've got a number 9 and he's fit, you may as well use him. And I think he's only on a short-term deal because of CKR's injury and obviously the whole transfer embargo thing. So I think he's actually only contracted till January. But if he was to come in, play every game between now and January and get us 4 or 5 goals, I don't think that's a bad return, personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Cory, we'll come to you on Ravel Morrison and Phil Jagielka. What have you made of their start to the season at Derby County? We've seen Morrison get on the score sheet, and Jagielka's been a pretty ever-present figure in that back line, hasn't he?
Yeah, let's start with Phil Jagielka. Obviously, what a pro to bring in. And, with the restrictions that Derby were under with a squad cap, and then obviously the amount of wages that they get paid, $4,500 a week, you weren't always going to get the cream of the crop free agents, but Phil Jagielka's come into the building. I think his friendship with Rooney was really one of the catalysts to do that. Obviously, also getting paid to play football is better than not getting paid to play football, right? So that's obviously a thing. But he's been an absolute stalwart at the back, and really formed a really good defensive partnership with Curtis Davis. Yes, I think between the two of them, they've got like a 78 years of combined age or something like that. But yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding. So, I mean, it's just a normal Phil Jagielka veteran presence at the back. And I think with the balance of the young lads that Derby have in that squad, what Jagielka performs for them in the dressing room and what he does for them on the training pitch will also be immeasurable for a lot of these young players to see a senior pro who has England caps, who has played in the Premier League not too long ago, as early as last season, to go out there and to learn off of him, I think will be a fantastic opportunity. And then when you look at Ravel Morrison, obviously he's a bit of a maverick player. We've been hearing the name Ravel Morrison for the good part of a decade. When you look at it, 12 clubs in 10 years doesn't make good reading. We know that he's had some off the field issues in the past. He went to Den Haag. From all accounts there, we spoke to a couple Den Haag journalists and fans. He didn't really pull up any trees there. And so you're kind of like, oh God, Derby's kind of, is this really the last chance saloon for Ravel Morrison? Because, how many more opportunities is a talented footballer going to get before they could, put it all together, similar to, other players in the past. And so, yeah, he's been really, really good, really solid. I think there's another level for him to get to. But I think right now, while he's putting in consistently decent and good performances, I think it's the best you can ask. I mean, I'd rather have players be consistently okay or consistently decent that you can rely upon, rather than having these big, swings in player performance, right? They're really on one week, they're really crap the next week. I'd rather him be pretty consistent throughout, and Ravel's done that. He's an integral part. He links play between Derby's two holding midfielders or sitting midfielders with Max Burton and Graham Shinney. Then he links that up with the other front three with great aplomb. And like you said, he scored his goal against Salford, and it was a remarkably great strike in the Carabao Cup. So and one that Derby needed, because they obviously went to penalties in that game. But yeah, Rooney rested Ravel yesterday, as well as a few other key players, I think, with half an eye to Stoke, because I don't necessarily think Rooney expected to go to the Hawthorns to win the game. So hopefully his form can continue and be a real asset to Derby as he's been so far.
Yeah, Derby fans watching, please do share your comments on your thoughts on their start to life at Derby County. Right, let's touch on the manager. Obviously, Wayne Rooney came in after Philip Cocu's departure last season. Obviously, initially in a playing role as well, but then he took on the full-time duty as head coach at Derby County. Jason, we'll come to you. I mean, how are you feeling about Wayne Rooney as your manager right now? Are you content? Is he someone you feel can take the Rams forward?
Yeah, actually, I do. I wouldn't say my opinion's ever been too negative about him, but of course, the facts don't lie and results don't lie, and football is a results business. There was times last year where any other club had got the sack. I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's just the fact that Derby couldn't afford to sack him, to be honest. He's obviously he's had a summer to work with players. The problem is, of course, a good chunk of that squad didn't come in until the 2 days before the season starts. But of course, they were training with us. They were technically on trial. And I think you're actually starting to see the benefits of that. Instead of bringing in 6 or 7 on deadline day and then trying to integrate them into a squad, he's had this group of players. And he was very vocal in saying, I think we had 9 on trial. Okay, we lost out on 2 or 3. They wanted, football security, which absolutely fully understand. But they have had since the beginning of pre-season together. And I do think it shows. I do think it shows. I mean, they're not the most glamorous names in football, but he's working with both hands and probably both feet and everything else tied behind his back at the minute with everything that's going off. And I mean, I don't want to get too optimistic and go too far ahead, but if he can achieve what he's achieving at the moment, and of course we're only 7 games in, we have to understand that. But if Derby are still, I think it's fair to say, defying the odds in and around Christmas time, when that that fixture list really does start to get going, then I think I think there will be some Derby fans that have to put their hands up and go, actually, he isn't doing a bad job. And if he can do that with Derby, and he can stick around and be involved in part of a new regime and a new chapter at Derby County, which inevitably is going to happen soon, but we just don't know how soon that's going to be. And if he is given an opportunity to do more, then fair play to him. I think one of the things that we all said, whilst of course you look at it and go, no experience in management, this, that, and the other. I think that one of the big positives that we said about him coming in is, well, he should have some pretty solid contacts about getting players in. And he never mentioned names in pre-season, but that was a comment that he made regularly to the media of Derby and local radio and things like that he had got a list of players that he wanted to bring in. They have never been announced who they were. But he did say that, I think in a recent interview, he said that he missed out on 7 players that he wanted. You would have to wonder how many of those were on loan from the likes of Man United, from the likes of Everton, these clubs that he's got a connection and an affinity with. And obviously Steven Gerrard at Rangers, he would have played with him. Frank Lampard, obviously not at the moment in a game, in a team, but all little things like that. And I know that was the one thing that we went, he should have a real black book of people that he can bring in. And obviously, again, he's had his hands tied, so he's not been able to do that. I'd love for him to be able to have the opportunity, because I think that's really when you can really judge him on what he can and can't do as a manager. But for me, from the way that we were playing towards the back end of the 15 so games last season where we couldn't buy a win, to where we are in the current 7 that we've seen, and in the majority of pre-season games as well, he's got Derby playing in a certain way, different to what we did last season. He's working with what he's got. And I'd like to see him be given the opportunity to take it that next step. If that happens anytime soon, I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I think actually so far, and I think more and more so, he's earning his stripes a little bit at Derby. I have to give him his due. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, just by looking on social media, it feels like more Derby fans are getting on board with Wayne Rooney, because there does seem to be, there seemed to be initially a bit of resentment to it, a little bit of uncertainty, but he's definitely seeming to win over any haters for sure. Cory, we'll just come to you briefly on this one. Liam Rosenior's struck up quite a partnership with Rooney. Obviously, he's the assistant, but whenever he comes across in interviews, he seems very switched on tactically, speaks really well, he comes across really well. I mean, how much influence do you think Rosenior's had on Rooney and the Derby team in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think they rely on Liam an awful lot. I think sometimes when things go pear-shaped, they send Liam out because of his articulation and the way he can do things. But yeah, I think he's having a decent impact. It looks from our angle, from the things that we see and everything like that. He does a majority of the coaching sessions where Rooney kind of, yes, implements his plan, yes, implements some things, but is also watching the players a little bit more, where Rosenior's a little bit more of that coach. And they have struck up a very good partnership between them. So, Liam Rosenior is a very young coach. He came here with, I think he's an ambitious young coach. I think anybody would be, at that age in the coaching realm. So, hopefully he gets his opportunity to the top job, because at his age, with the pedigree that he's had, with the baptism of fire that he's had at Derby, because even when he came in under Philip Kaku, it wasn't necessarily easy. I think he's going to make a very good manager one day. Whether that's at Derby or that's somewhere else, I'm not sure, but I do think that he will be a very good coach one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's touch on some of the young players emerging at Derby County at the moment. As we've already touched on, Dylan Williams obviously made his first league start for Derby County last night. But we've seen a lot of other players, younger players, emerging throughout this season. Obviously, Jack Stretton, the young striker, Louis Watson, and a whole host of other players. I mean, Cory, we'll come to you again. Are there any particular youngster in particular that you're really excited about? I mean, lots has been spoken about Louis Watson of late and the impact he could potentially have. Are there anyone that kind of stands out among them kind of young crop of players?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's interesting to note that, yes, Dylan Williams, Jack Stretton, and Louis Watson are the latest names on the production line. But even within Derby's first teams, you're looking at a player like Louis Sibley. He just turned 20. You've got Max Bird, who's 20. You've got Lee Buchanan, who's 19, 20, 21 years old. So there are some other young players in the squad as well that are already performing, that sometimes you forget that they are so young, because they are basically bang on starters or bang on first teamers now. And then they've played 15, sometimes between 15 and 50 games for Derby. And they've done well. So sometimes you forget about them as well. But I think if this next generation coming through, Louis Watson's obviously very exciting. Everyone really likes a creative midfielder. Jack Stretton is an interesting option, being a forward. But again, a forward's job is to score goals. In the championship, it's very difficult for even the seasoned pros to score goals. And I think in this Derby team, it would be unfair to judge Jack Stretton just on goals, because this Derby team doesn't necessarily create a lot of scoring opportunities. Yes, he got his goal against Peterborough. He took it well. And so I would be excited for him. I would be excited for that opportunity for him to come through and to be a talismanic player for Derby. But this Derby team, like I said, doesn't create necessarily enough chances. And that's a lot of weight to put on a player to score goals to keep the team in the division. So for me, I think I'm mostly excited about Dylan Williams. I think, he played against Chorley in the FA Cup last year, and the appearances that we've seen him make this season, he's been really, really good. It's, I echo everything that Jason said earlier in the show about Dylan. Absolutely fantastic to come in. He played well last night, and it's just the one shame that he's playing a position where it's the one position that Derby have a lot of depth, which is left fullback, with Craig Forsyth, Lee Buchanan, and then obviously Dylan Williams. So it will be interesting to see how he progresses, but I think it's important with all the young players, to make sure that they don't burn out and they do it the right way. And one player that we are forgetting, Jason, because he's not been involved for a couple of weeks, is Festi Ebisele, who is a fullback, and they've converted him now kind of to a more midfield role. He's been out since the Peterborough game with an injury, a knee injury, so we don't know when he's going to be back. But yeah, he's a very exciting prospect, and I think next to Dylan Williams, it would probably be Festi Ebisele because of his pace, his excitement. He gets on the ball, he runs at players, and when you run at defenders don't like that. They get scared. They stick a leg out. He can get a penalty. He's won a couple already so far. He's very raw, Ebisele, but he's also very young. So he continues on his growth projection at Derby. I think he'll have a very good career.
Yeah, lots of exciting youngsters coming through the ranks at Pride Park for sure. Right, let's touch on a player that hasn't seen any action this season. That man being Christian Bielik, a big player for Derby County who struggled with a knee injury ever since January at the start of the year, was a real key influence for him last term when he was fit. Jason, we'll come to you. It sounds like he's going to be recovering and potentially being back to action in and around the turn of the year. That's the kind of latest suggestions. I mean, just how big will it be to have someone like Bielik back in that squad and fit and available?
Massive. We touched on this a few weeks ago. If Derby continue to play the way that they're playing at the moment, and grinding out the results, some solid performances, he is a first name on the team sheet by a country mile. So, it will mean that whoever misses out will be, I think, hard done by. I think is fair. It would be very, very harsh. But Christian Bielik, I mean, it's strange to think that we've had him for nearly 2 years, but I think we've only seen him play 12 times because of his injuries. But those 12 games are, I mean, the first couple after his first knee injury, I think he got rushed back. But there was a couple of performances where we were swapping him from centre half to then to the holding role. We were trying to work out exactly where he fits in. He fitted into that Koku squad. He wanted to play at centre half. For me personally, I don't think he looked very comfortable at centre half. As soon as we moved him and Koku moved him further forward, it was just like a hand in a glove. He just slipped straight in, and he is a Rolls Royce of a player. But he's one of the, he'll break up play. He makes it look effortless from what we've seen of him. It makes it look effortless. He wins back the ball. I mean, he's not the quickest, but his presence is there. And he's got an absolute wonder of an eye for a pass. And he scored a couple of goals last season. He gets on the end of set pieces. And goals from anywhere at Derby would be great, especially if it's coming from that, defensive line. Obviously, you're worried. He's had 2 ACL injuries in 2 years. You have to be worried for him, especially at such a young age. I think he's only 22, 23. He should now have 100, probably 50 to 100 championship games under his belt at that age, because he is that good. He is definitely that good. And unfortunately, he's not. This time they're taking their time with him. Again, like you say, turn of the year is. I know he's out training. He's doing grass work. He's doing ball work. But they've got to get it right this time, because they can't afford for him to have another one. I mean, injuries happen. That's unfortunate. He would be a huge boost for me. I don't see how you can play it down. We wondered after the first injury if he was going to come back the same player. He came back a better player, in my opinion. If we can get another 10% out of him, then I think, I don't mean to be big-headed or anything like that, I think we've got one of the best players in the championship on our hands. Then obviously comes, if we can get him fit by the turn of the year, if he plays a half a season, will Derby be able to keep hold of him in the summer? That would be, that's a different conversation. But he's got the ability to be a real special player. He just needs a break with injuries, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite easy to forget he is only 23 still. He has got a lot of time to develop and mature and progress and get even better as a player. Right, let's touch on another player there. When Kasem Richards arrived, there were a lot of Derby fans that weren't too sure on it. And I think there were a lot of football fans in general, because he wasn't a name we'd seen on these shores for quite a while. And he kind of came in and a little bit unexpected. But he's had a real impact, hasn't he? He's looked a real focal point up front. I mean, Cory, have you been impressed with Kasem Richards' impact at Derby County? And also, do you think you're missing his focal point right now? Because he is out injured, isn't he?
Yeah, CKR. I'll be honest. I think your sentiments in the question, Sam, summed it up perfectly. When CKR came to Derby, I don't think I was necessarily. I was kind of more like, what? This is what we got, because Derby had chased a number 9 center forward all summer, hadn't got the targets in, and then it's like close to deadline day, and you bring in CKR, and you're kind of like, I don't know. He's in his like early to mid 30s. He's had this like nomadic career. He's coming from Mexico. He's not played since March. Like, this is a very bizarre kind of thing. But yeah, CKR has been immeasurable for what he's done for Derby County in the season and a bit that he's been in. I shudder to think where Derby would have been last season without him. Obviously, he finished top scorer with 8 goals. And he'd already scored once this season, and the Achilles injury is very unfortunate for him. But yeah, I think it's just the intangibles that he brings more than what he brings. I mean, obviously he's bringing a goal threat on the field. He's a focal point. And let's talk tactics then. I mean, he is that focal point for Derby. They do rely on him. He is their most consistent source of goals. A Derby team with Kasem Richards in it is better than a team without it at the moment, without him in it. And he is their most consistent goal threat. He makes things happen. He takes, he holds the ball up well. He dribbles well in tight spaces. He brings other players into play. Very much kind of like a Chris Martin-esque kind of player that Derby had several years ago. Not same vintage of Chris Martin, where Chris Martin was unplayable for like 4 seasons, but towards the latter stages. But yeah, CKR has just been fantastic. And missing him, Derby have missed a bit of a focal point, because Sam Bolduc is a slightly different striker to him. And when Lawrence plays up there, obviously he's different to him as well. Slighter build, they tend to make more runs in the channels and don't necessarily serve as that focal point to play the ball to the target man, who then, plays it off to the side, gets in the box, makes something happen, and those kind of things. But I think off the field as well is where he's really proved his worth. I think last season when he started playing, it was right after Kaku had got sacked, and Derby obviously were not doing well. That's why the manager got sacked, right? And he just was talking. I mean, he did an interview with Derby's in-house media team and was like, I look around the dressing room and I'm thinking, why are we in this position and whatever? And I think the way he spoke really bought him something with the Derby fans in terms of some credit or whatever. And he's just been fantastic. The grit that he shows, the determination, the drive, the passion that he when he wears the Ram, with the shirt with the Ram on it, is fantastic. He's learned a lot in his career, and that's what he said. Like, he plays football for a living. He wanted to see the world, so why not do it while playing football? And that's fantastic. And he brings buckets of experience, and very much like Phil Jagielka, he's going to be in a dressing room full of young, impressionable lads. They're going to see what a professional he is, the professionalism that he brings, the determination, the drive, the want to do better. And I personally would just say, without CKR last year, I think Derby probably would have gone down. He didn't wear the captain. He's worn the captain armband on a few times, but he's definitely a solid member of that leadership group. And Derby, it was very good that they were able to extend him for another year. And I think after this season, we'll see what happens. I know he's got an option in his contract to potentially go into some sort of coaching role at the club, whether that's first team academy. We're not sure whether he'll play again next season. We don't know, right? Because he's getting up in age, nothing to do with injuries. But Kasem Richards is absolutely fantastic. And he's such a massive miss. When he was injured against Peterborough, I think I just texted Jason with like crying face emojis and was just like, what are we going to do from here? And obviously Jack Stretton came on and scored the goal and whatever, but the impact that Kasem Richards has on this team right now and this football club for the last 18 months has been pretty immeasurable. He's been a fantastic professional, and I'm very happy that I'm eating my words of Kasem Richards. Really, is that who we're going to get? Because he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he really has emerged as a key component in Rooney's team at the moment. Right, let's touch on something that we have kind of brushed over this show. Quite a big talking point with Derby County over the last few months. That is, of course, the off-pitch matters at Derby County. It has been a turbulent few months/years when it comes to the off-pitch matters at Derby County. 2 failed takeover bids over the course of the summer. Mel Morris wanting to sell up, but as it stands, prospective buyers are reportedly getting frustrated with everything that's going on. And of course, there is a points deduction potentially still looming over Derby County's head. Jason, we'll come to you. I mean, how do you feel about everything? So much has happened off the pitch for Derby over the last few months. I mean, you must almost be fed up a bit.
Yeah, it's difficult to find the words. It's comical. It really is. It's absolutely ridiculous how somebody who took over the club, who was this renowned Derbyshire businessman, made his millions, playing Candy Crush or whatever it may well have been, to then take over a football club, run it like a business, and fail miserably. And I think you have to be honest, that's exactly what he's done. Okay, he's pumped millions in, and he has, and he got us our academy up to up to Cat 1, and he did a lot, and he has done a lot, and he by a couple of kicks of a football, we should have been potentially in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. But ultimately, he's failed. And it comes across now that he's... I mean, we just don't know. I think the biggest problem is we don't know. We don't know what's going off because nothing's really ever been said. It's been very, very quiet from the club for quite some time, really. Obviously, little things are still happening in the background, but it's not just him owning the football club. Our ticket office has only just reopened. We've still not got season tickets sorted out, or they're being sorted out as we talk. There was a delay on the kit. It's just all the day-to-day little things that you think as somebody who's running the football club is a businessman. How is he getting all this wrong? Why is he getting all this wrong? Is it really that there is no money there at all to get these things? Yeah, and if that is the case, then I think we're all going to be more worried than we possibly are now for the future of Derby County Football Club. I don't know how difficult it is to run a football club. I don't run one. I'm sure it comes with its pressures. I'm sure it comes with difficulties. Over the last few years, most of the difficulties that Derby are looking, squaring up to at the moment in time are mistakes from the board. And obviously COVID football came along. Nobody was predicting that. But every other football club had to cut their cloth accordingly. And I just think it's made Derby worse because they were so fine-lined in terms of finances before COVID. As soon as COVID hit and you take out that 10, 15 million pound revenue from season ticket sales, and match day and revenue and sponsorship and all that, I'm just putting a figure on that. I don't actually know if it's that, but I've got a feeling it's probably around that figure. I mean, that's like us having 200 quid of our wages taken away every week. I know that we're scaling it down a little bit there, but what kind of an impact would that have on us? And then you can't borrow money probably because we're already up to our eyeballs in debt. It was a car crash. It's only going to end one way. It does feel like that there's a stubbornness. It does feel like we're not being told things because things are being hidden because things are that bad. And I think you have to think that way because if they weren't that bad, then why wouldn't they just come out and say something, which they don't seem to be doing. Obviously, the saga with the AFL has been laughable again at best from both parties. The AFL have not covered themselves in any glory in this, I don't think. And I don't think really you can move on from this point until the dust has settled and the charges are there for Derby and the AFL go, this is the charge and this is the proof, and then Derby turn around and don't have a defence to that. that's when we're going to look at it and go, wow, this last 2 years has been either for an absolute waste of time, or oh my God, our Derby County is still a football club with the way that they've been behaving over the last 2 years. So it's frustrating. I'm just glad that things at the moment on the pitch are going okay. The performances are there, and it doesn't seem to have affected the on-field stuff. Okay, players coming in, that did affect it, but with what we've got at the minute, it's working. But unfortunately, at the minute, there just seems to be no end. The sanctions are there for everybody to see out in the wide world. This is what Derby County need to do to get an embargo lifted. This is what Derby County need to do to get to satisfy the EFL. And week by week, it's not happening, and there has to be a reason behind that. And I can't see how it's a positive reason. It can only be, for me, it can only be a negative. It's worrying times. It is worrying times. If some of the reports that I've heard, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard about this Al Jazeera documentary that came out to say that Derby owe 150 million. And it's like, wow, I mean, really, you've wasted 150 million pound at Derby County. That is laughable. It's comical. I can't think of any other words. And I have to say, 90% at least of this fan club just want the man out. They really do. They just want him gone. Let's face what's coming, but just get rid, because he's not made sound decisions. So anything that you read about what the EFL are going to do, they're going to put us under some form of transfer plan, or more of a ban, or a financial plan. They can only budget, all this. We don't want him negotiating with the EFL anymore, because he's clearly not. He's made mistakes. He's made too many mistakes. We need a fresh approach at this. But honestly, can you expect anybody to come and buy Derby County in the state that they're in? For me, no. I just can't see why they would. They'd be crazy to.
Yeah, no, certainly a really tough situation. I think we could do a separate whole show on the off-pitch matters at Derby County. It's fair to say. We've had a comment come in. I'll aim this one towards you, Cory. We had a message from Chrissy, H2711 on Twitter. Kasem Richards could be key to helping settle Rovell Morrison too. What are your thoughts on that, Cory?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've. First of all, thanks to Chris. He follows us on Twitter and supports the podcast. So, Chris, great to see you. Thanks for jumping on. Yeah, I agree. I think CKR. He's had very similar career to Rovell Morrison, right? Having played in a lot of different countries, having kind of bounced around and those kind of things. So I definitely think that he can play a father figure kind of role, and that's not to be pejorative, disrespectful or anything like that, but he can be that kind of mentor role at Derby for Rovell, and hopefully, steady him a little bit and make him realize the opportunity that Rovell Morrison has afforded. I mean, Rovell Morrison's still only 28 years old. It feels like we've been talking about Rovell Morrison for like the better part of 30 years, but he's still only 28 years old. So he's still got hopefully plenty of mileage left in the tank. He's not necessarily played as many senior games as probably he would have liked. But yeah, definitely CKR will be a big figure there to be a mentor and put his arm around him and say, look, I've had similar kind of career path, and this is how we can get past this.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's wrap up this Derby County Fan Takeover show by looking ahead to this Saturday. So Derby County take on Stoke City at Pride Park on the weekend. Stoke have enjoyed a really strong start to the season. They look very, very good candidates for a top six push at the very least. Should be quite stern opposition for Derby this weekend. Right, Jason, let's get your score prediction for this one. Are you confident heading into this one?
I'm a lot more confident than I was after last night. It's all going to be about chalk and cheese. Which Derby County team turn up? Is it the one from Friday night or is it the one from Tuesday night? Because if it's the one from Tuesday night, I have a feeling Derby can perform. My problem is that obviously they went a lot more long ball last night. They didn't mess about with it at the back. It's not the way that Wayne wants to play. I don't think it's the way that Wayne will play at home. So there will be chances are there will be mistakes. There will be opportunities for Stoke to score. I've predicted 1-1, but that was before last night's result. I'm going to stick with 1-1. A good battling performance, and Derby will be in the game. Derby will be in the game. We've just got to hope that the rest for, as Cory mentioned earlier, rest for a couple of the more senior players last night just helps out, gives them a little bit of a boost. You got to, like you said, Stoke have had a really solid start. You've got to hope they're kind of, off it a little bit, because they've got some good firepower going forward. I'll say that, and they can defend pretty well as well. Derby have just got to ride the wave, ride the luck, take the opportunities when they come along. I can see Derby beating Stoke, but if I'm being honest, I think a 1-1 probably a fair prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we come on to your score prediction, Cory had another comment come in on Twitter from Eamon Rams. Morris needs to sort this out ASAP. Guy's a clown. We won't talk too much more about that, but it's quite clear to see how a lot of Derby fans are feeling. Cory, let's get your score prediction for the Stoke game on Saturday.
Yeah, Stoke's always a tough fixture. We know what Stoke brings, right? There's a reason why it's a cold, wet, and windy night in Stoke. So hopefully, obviously this is Pride Park, this is weekend. But yeah, I think the performance yesterday really heartened me a little bit with the performance of this squad. And I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, it's when you're watching Derby this season, you're not looking for liquid football. You're looking at a scrappy kind of win and get points on the board, because for me, until you get 9 or 12 points on the league table, the season hasn't started yet, because there's the looming, D word, the deduction, right? The points deduction looming. So you've got to get that on the board as quick as possible. You have to take your opportunities when you have points. And I do think that this Derby team will battle and fight and scrap. And I think, you'll see a very, I don't think it'll necessarily be a classic, but I think it'll be a very tightly contested game. And I think what I would like to see from Derby, though, is I'd like to see this consistency in performance, consistency in levels from the players, especially Kell Roos. We've talked about Kell and what he performed last night earlier in the show. So, if Kell can put in another great performance and Derby can battle away like they did at West Brom, hopefully with a little bit more goal threat. I definitely echo Jason's score prediction of 1-1. Some sort of draw, because this Derby defense, we have seen in recent weeks, with the exception of last night, they do tend to give teams a chance. That team tends to bury it. But again, at the EFL level, all teams tend to give you a chance. So it's just if you can take that chance or not. But I can definitely see a solid 1-1 draw, which is not to say that Derby are dropping 2 points. Look, Stoke are third in the league. They've had a very good, excellent start to the season. And we'll see what the season brings with Stoke City ultimately. But for Derby, it's going to be a scrappy, gritty performance. And that's not to be rude or anything like that. I think that's a really fair I think it's a fair assessment because I'm saying it, but I think it's kind of a compliment that they've got this team playing the way that they do, with the restriction that they under, us against the world, back them into corner, and let's see who comes out swinging. So definitely can see a draw, and it's not going to be a footballing classic, but hopefully Derby can walk away with a point, and for me that would be a point well earned. And well gotten out of a team that's done well so far at the start of the season in Stoke.
Yeah, I'd say 1-1 would be a very respectable result for Derby County for sure this weekend. Right, well, that concludes this week's episode of the Derby County Fan Takeover Show. Jason, Cory, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. I really did enjoy that. Please do, all Derby fans watching this, check out the Rams Review podcast, a cracking podcast to do with all things Derby County, well worth checking out. But once again, guys, thanks again for joining. And we've got the EFL preview show at 4:00 later on today on FLW TV. So please do check in on that ahead of this evening's championship fixtures. But thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch up soon.